Alright, Halloween 2. Now, this movie is lauded as some as terrible, and is. Some people legitimately think this is one of the worst sequels to the franchise. I obviously disagree. And here's the reason why. John Carpenter came back to do it. It is a direct continuation. He finished his story, and that should be applauded. Now, is it different than the first one? Oh, vastly. While it is a direct continuation of the story and they finish the story, the style is different. There's more cuts. It's not quite as slow and lumbering building. It's a little bit more. It's in a lot of ways more action than the first one. Although not really. It's not like fast-paced cuts. There's not a lot of running around and stuff like that. It's still kind of slow moving, but it's more action oriented than the first one. As I said when I was discussing the first one, Michael Myers doesn't feel quite as intimidating in this one. He looks slighter. What I mean by that, he doesn't look as big, and that's because it is a different person playing him. But he makes up for it in some very gruesome and innovative kills. He doesn't stick with a knife in this one. And there's a reason for that. Now, the reason that he had a knife in the first one is because it was the first weapon that he found. Everybody thinks Michael Myers is the knife, is the big knife. No, Michael Myers will use whatever he has. His first kill was in a house, in the first one, in the original one. He came across the house and he came across a kitchen knife. That's what he used. He uses a knife in this one until he gets to the hospital. Let's go through the story quickly, because I want to focus on other aspects of this movie other than the story. That's not my review for this one. Michael Myers is alive, obviously. Dr. Loomis is looking for him. All the cops are looking for him. Laurie Strode is taken to the hospital because, I mean, she was stabbed and her leg was broken. And while the police and Dr. Loomis are looking all around town for him, Laurie Strode is stuck in the hospital. They're hearing things. They're finding the other bodies. He's killed again. He broke into the elementary school at one point, which that part was always a little bit off. It didn't quite feel like it belonged with the rest of it. It's like they tried to give some sort of explanation, but it wasn't really there. And he eventually finds her. He eventually makes his way to the hospital and finds her. And, you know, everybody comes to save the day, blah, blah, blah. There you go. The majority of this takes place in the hospital. So it gives an opportunity for some very innovative kills. At one point, he kills somebody, and then he kills at one point he kills somebody because she's in a hot tub by turning the temperature up really, really high and shoving her face into the water and holding it there until her skin melts off. That's pretty cool. He shoots an air pocket. He takes a syringe and injects an air pocket into somebody's eye and gives them a brain aneurysm. That's pretty cool. There's some very innovative kills here, and I think that more than makes up for the difference, the subtle difference in the two versions of Michael Myers between these movies. And it is very, very subtle. It really is. You know, he's still slow and lumbering. He doesn't run. Michael Myers does not run. He walks. He stalks you. He's a hunter, basically. And he does that in this movie, but it's just not quite the same. It's again, it's a very, very, very fine line between it, but you can tell that something that is just not quite the same. Again, all props to Nick Castle for the first one for giving us such an amazing performance as the Shape. Um, and I mean, he's full Michael Myers in this one. Everybody knows who he is. His name is all over the news, stuff like that. Um, oh, and let's talk about Dr. Loomis. As I said, I would talk about Dr. Loomis in this one. Now, Dr. Loomis is slightly different in this one, and here's my reasoning for it. He's getting desperate. In this first movie, he was very Shakespearean and poetic about who Michael Myers was. That he recognized this pure evil. And he's spending, he goes and he spent like half the time that Myers was in the institution. Dr. Loomis says that he spent like 7 years convincing the board not to release him, convincing them that he needs to stay. And he even mentions slightly in the first one that nobody's listening to him. But it's kind of a throwaway line, but it's important for the second one because the second one it really comes into play that people aren't listening to him. They're not listening to what he's saying about Myers. And I feel like he's getting desperate at that point. He hasn't turned into complete loon Dr. Loomis yet. He does that later. We're going to get to those. But he's very kind of slow and methodical in the first one, again, matching the pace and the tone of the first movie. But in this one, he's a little bit more frenetic. He's starting to lose it a little bit. He's like, no, we have to find him. Like, he's just getting desperate. He wants for this whole thing to end. He wants for it to end before it gets bad, before it gets any worse. And that's admirable in everybody they find. And I mean literally every dead body they find, he starts to lose a little bit more of who he is and what he is. And I feel that that's character growth. That's character development, even if it's maybe not welcome character development. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you agree with what the character development is, as long as it's there. And he has it. And it's all done in the period of a night. Of one night. We have to remember, these movies take place literally Halloween night. Both of them. And one of the main things with this movie is everybody feels that there were some problems with him. And I'd like to talk about them. I just talked about Dr. Loomis. Everybody feels that the Dr. Loomis's character development and character change was awkward. I don't feel so. I just explained why. One of the other problems that people had was they felt that Michael Myers went a little bit too much psychopath in this one, and I don't necessarily feel that that's a strong argument, because he's on a mission. He's on a very specific mission. He's just having to kill all the people that get in his way. Stop getting in his way and you won't die. They chose to, John Carpenter chose to forego the long static shots in this one. Although there are a few static shots that are very, very effective. One of them is down the hallway of the hospital where Myers is stalking Laurie Strode. I felt that one was very effective, but he, for the most part, forego some of those. And a lot of people didn't like that. But he makes up for it, I feel, in these shots of Myers in the background, sometimes killing somebody, but you don't see it. It's something like behind, at one point it's behind a frosted glass door. So you see shapes of what's happening, but you don't actually see it. And he had used that same effect, that same kind of shot earlier to show woman getting undressed to get into a hot tub. And I felt it was very effective because it's literally that same scene, but just later, where she's getting out of the hot tub and her boyfriend is getting killed behind the door by Myers. So I felt it was a nice way to tie those two together. He used shots like that where you kind of see them, but you don't really see them. Instead of these static shots that are making you uncomfortable, you're seeing things that are happening, but they're, even though they're on screen, they're off screen at the same time. And that kind of makes you uncomfortable too, because you're like, okay, I know something's happening, but I'm not actually seeing what's happening. And there are some kills in this movie that you don't even see at all. They just find the body. And that kind of messes with you a little bit, because these kind of movies, you're used to seeing all the kills. You're not used to them just finding bodies, be like, oh, well, I guess he got this person too. But we didn't see that, but it's obvious that he did. And finally, and then I'm going to wrap this up because this video got a little long. I went very, very long on the first one, and I knew I was going to, but I still apologize for it. One of the biggest problems that everybody had with this movie is the revelation. Now, this was, one of the biggest problems that a lot of people had with this movie was a line thrown in by one of Dr. Loomis's co-workers that comes to town to get him, that there was a secret file on Michael Myers that had been locked away, and it turns out that Laurie Strode is his sister. Now, let's discuss this rationally. First movie, there was no indication of that, and it worked for that because he was just an unstoppable killing machine that came into town. He had no background. Hell, he almost didn't even have a name. Like, they legitimately weren't even going to give him a name when they first made this movie. He was just the shape. And it worked for that. But if you're going to make a sequel to a movie, because they left it open for a sequel because John Carpenter had more story to tell. And now, whether originally it was always going to be Laurie Strode was his sister, I don't know that. That's something that I do not know, if that was always originally the plan or not. But I felt that it was a very, very good addition. And here's why. Because in the first movie, he's touted as just this unstoppable psycho killing machine that's pure evil. Okay? Second movie, he's trying to find Laurie Strode again. Why? Why is he fixating on one person? And if you really watch the first one and pay attention, he's basically stalking her the entire movie. So I felt that it made sense to give him a reason for why he's doing this. It gives, everybody's like, oh gosh, that was such a stupid thing that they threw in there. No, it's a very, very smart thing to throw in there because it ties the whole story together. He killed one sister when he was younger, when he was 6 years old. He had another sister that he knew about because they talk about the timeline of when all this takes place, when everything happens. So he gets out and goes to kill the other sister. He's trying to get rid of his own family because it's evil. And other things that get brought up in later movies, which is all twisted, but again, we're going to get there. I felt that it was a really good addition to throw in the fact that they're related. It gave him a reason. Kind of a nonsensical reason, but a reason nonetheless. And a reason for why he was fixating on one person when he was supposed to be just this soulless psychopath killing machine. And he still is, don't get me wrong. In these movies, he still is. He's soulless, he's an incarnation of pure evil. In these first two movies he is. He is an incarnation of evil. As Dr. Loomis says and says and says again and again and again. They finally get him in the end. He's dead. He's really dead. He gets shot, he gets stabbed, he gets blown up, and literally burned alive. And that's how this series was supposed to end. It was going to be 2 movies telling over one night. It was brilliant. It was beautifully put together. And it was the last of the good ones. And next up, we have something that comes out of left field and has no direct ties to it, but it's still a good movie. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to give a little apology. This may have to be split into 2 videos because I kind of got long. It was supposed to be one long video, but it looks like it's probably running at almost 30 minutes now. So I apologize for that. So it's probably going to be split into 2. You're going to get the first Halloween and the second Halloween. And stay tuned because up next is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.